There are many sub topics for this. So I will hope to achieve two things in this hour we have. One thing is to understand some of the complications around anything that has to do with washing and keeping our body on Shabbat. To understand some of the topics, maybe details, I will try to explain them today, but if we don't remember all of them, we'll know that there is something we have to search and to understand. And the second thing is to achieve the understanding of the complexity of this, because the things we speak about today are things people normally think, okay, Shabbat means not to drive on Shabbat, not to cook food on Shabbat, and so on, when we speak about what's not allowed on Shabbat. But the things we speak about today are sometimes feels as a day-to-day doing that we normally don't think about, but that could be problematic. And the understanding of keeping a Shabbat in a halachic way is not only doing the things that people feel are not allowed on Shabbat, meaning the things that are clear, driving on Shabbat, and said firing on Shabbat and so on, but actually also in private, keeping the Shabbat as a frame, a halachic frame from that day, where we do things differently from other days, because there are things that are not allowed, and because the things have to be different. Shabbat. Sorry. Right. Yeah, it was my son. I sent him a message. So Rian, if he had a problem, that we will contact me. Sorry. It's a problem in this world where we have to be available to everyone all the time, and then we're not available to anyone anytime. It's one of the good things on Shabbat, where we don't use the mobile phone and we are just where we are, and it's not expected from us to be. Yes, okay. So the first thing I want to speak about is washing, okay? Water. What could be problematic with water on Shabbat, if anyone could help me? When we try to wash ourselves. What could be problematic to wash ourselves on Shabbat? It's important to be clean. If you could think about problems, not how to do it, but what are the problems?
Warming of the water.
Warming the water, exactly. There's a problem. Cooking on Shabbat is not allowed. On water, the way we cook water is we take them from being cold to being hot. And then when we want to use hot water to wash ourselves, our hands, anything, then we have to see that we don't cook in the way we get to use water. Yes, Rebecca?
Squeezing a towel.
Squeezing. Yeah, so squeezing schita on Shabbat is not allowed. So if we, in the washing way, we squeeze out water from something, it could be if we wash ourselves and our hair, maybe my hair is harder because I don't have so much hair, but mainly women that have a lot more hair, and it's wet, and you could squeeze it out. That's not allowed on Shabbat. It's squeezing, or if we use a wet towel and we squeeze it, and everything else that could make us to squeeze on Shabbat, that's not allowed from the Torah. Squeezing. So we have cooking and we have squeezing. We have more things? Okay. So you said two of the main.
Maybe the way
yeah.
the way that you carry the water, if it's by pump or by bucket or
carrying the water is also a problem. Yeah. So if we go, for example, to the lake, and we swim in the water, and we go out, and our body is full of water, and then we go over, then we carry the water. And when we speak about carry the water, it's about, I'll go back to it. So carrying the water, maybe not in our homes, but if we want to swim outside, is also a problem. Okay.
I'm talking about pump that you need to, in the modern way, to use to bring the water home, or bucket that you take from the well into the house.
Yeah, sometimes you have a pump, and if you take water, you could activate a pump. And if you activate a pump, you activate something that is not allowed on Shabbat. That's also very true. Yes.
Also, the pouring of the water itself over the body.
The putting the water itself over the body, it's problematic, but why?
Well, because it is being pushed by the pipes, and you have to turn on the, I don't know what it's called, like the tap and everything.
Turning on the tap, the question is that the same like pushing on the button where we want to have light or not? It's a good question. Very good. Yes. Micha or Mikael?
Yeah. When you open the tap, you also activate the electricity in the boiler. How do you say it in English?
When you take out water from the boiler, from the heater, then you activate something that is heating up the water there.
Yeah, it's a thermostat. And
I will add, you take new cold water into the hot water, and then the new cold water is maybe considered as you cooking. So you take hot water and you think, okay, I'm just taking the hot water from here to here, it's okay. But you don't remember that when you take hot water from here to here, it's new cold water comes into the hot water and you're cooking it.
Yeah. And also it's a thermostat inside that activates the electricity switch.
And in addition, you could cool down the temperature inside the cooker or the water boiler or what it is. And then when the water is going down, it's activating electricity that is heating it up again. It's a question of which kind of system you have. That's correct. Yes. Yes, Justin.
But if we switch off the thermostat and activate only the cold water.
If we only open the cold water, we don't open the hot water, then we don't get anything from the boiler.
Exactly.
And then we don't have the problem with hot water. Good. That could be a solution. That could be a good
solution. In Norway.
Good question. I'll come to it. Okay, so let's try to after we have spoken, you have nicely helped us with the problems, and you correct that the main problems. I'll go back to the sources. I'll just to have a point that we want to go to. Will tell you that when there was COVID in my family's house in Israel, the children build up a swimming pool, a big swimming pool that you build yourself with deck around and so on. And there was a big discussion in the family: are we allowed to use this swimming pool on Shabbat or not? And everyone, including myself, has a will to have that possible, because it's very fun on Shabbat to be able to go, and especially in Israel when it's hot, it's a good activity. And the question that we could have as a point is that allowed or not to go into a swimming pool on Shabbat? We'll out of that also explain other problems with washing, not going swimming, but other problems that also are connected to water. So the Gemara says in the Talmud, it says that you're not allowed to wash all of your body in hot water, even, or mainly it speaks, of course, it doesn't speak about hot water that was heated on Shabbat, because you're not allowed to heat water on Shabbat. But if we speak about hot water that is heated from before, the Gemara says still you're not allowed to wash all of your body with it, out of a kind of gzera, a rule, understanding that if we will allow people to wash all of their body, to go to people didn't have a bathroom with a bath or like that they could do it at home. We went to the spa or to the hammam, or I don't know, the washing place that was central. But if you heated up water there before Shabbat, you're not allowed to wash all of your body on Shabbat with that, because in the end, people will heat up. Oh, could you just put a little more hot water because it's not so hot anymore? To try to shower in cold water. You want a little more hot. It's too cold. You want it to be a little hotter. And because it's so easy to go from using only hot, heated water from before Shabbat, in the way they heat it up in old days, to using, the Gemara says, a gzera, a rule, you don't wash all of your body, even if you wash every part of your body separately. Okay, so it doesn't mean only not going into the washing, to the shower, or to the bath, but even taking one part of the body at a time. As I heard from my grandmother, that's how they showered in Europe in old days. Normally, they just took a part of the body at a time. With hot water on Shabbat, the Gemara says it's not allowed, even if it's heated before, as a kind of secureness that you won't come to heat up water on Shabbat. Now, from that we can learn several things. Some people say that you're not allowed even to wash all of your body in cold water, even if, because it said not washing all of your body. But it does mean that washing parts of the body is allowed. So if I have a place where I got unclean, I can of course clean every place in my body if I don't clean my whole body. That's okay. Of course, cleaning my hands, my face, that's okay on Shabbat. Even with hot water, but not with hot water that is heated on Shabbat. Okay, so here we spoke about the shower. The shower itself is problematic with hot water, but I'm allowed to use water that is heated from before Shabbat to wash myself. The problem then is, and it's a question of where we are, is even when I want to wash my hands, that's of course correct if I want to wash the dishes. Dishes on Shabbat, you're allowed to wash if it's to have the plate clean for Shabbat, or if you need to use the dishes on Shabbat. If not, it's best to wait with the dishes for after Shabbat. If you have a dishwasher, you put it with a little water in the dishwasher and washer, and then you could use it after Shabbat. But even washing dishes on Shabbat, if we have hot water that was heated from before Shabbat, then we're allowed to use it on Shabbat. The problem is, as we said here, the systems in most places, it's not correct in all places. I know there are many places in Scandinavia where you get the heating from the municipality, the heated water, and then it's not the same as you have a boiler in your home. But let's say if I have a boiler in my home, as it is in my home here in Norway, then at once as I open the hot water, I am not, as we said before, not only using hot water that was heated from before Shabbat, but I am also cooking new water that goes into the boiler. And that's, of course, not allowed on Shabbat. Because of that, on Shabbat, I only use cold water, okay, in a home like mine. It isn't so good when water is really cold. It's harder to take off the oily things we can have in our hands, but we're not allowed to cook on Shabbat. So the only way I could maybe take hot water from the water I cook for having that I have from advance for having tea and so on, to put it together if it helps a little. But normally, personally, I only use cold water. And it's important to remember that, because when you open the water, then it's very normal to open in the middle in the way we have, and then it's mixed warm and cold water, and then I still take. So I have to take it all the way to the only cold water and open that. If you don't have these two openings where you could open only the cold water, as there are some places. But normally you have to take it all the way to the cold and only use cold water. This is not the case in places, if I'm not wrong, as for example in Gothenburg. I don't know if there are other places of people here where you get the water from the municipality, and then when you take out the hot water, it's a so big system that you don't change water in another place. It's a too big one to say that the little water you get in your home is changing another place. You only get supply of hot water, and then it would be allowed to use this hot water on Shabbat to wash parts of your body. The same issue will be, we had in, for example, in if the host could let people in, would help. I can't, sorry. The same thing we had when we built the community center in Oslo, the Jewish community center. They made the system of the hot water on Shabbat so that the water won't be too hot. So if the hot water stops at 35 degrees Celsius, 37 degrees Celsius, then it's not considered cooked water or hot water, but it's still hot. And then we are allowed to use the water, because the new water that comes in does not come into cooking water or to heated water. And then it's allowed. Unfortunately, the past years, this system does not work in our Jewish community center, and the ones in charge say that it's not possible to react it. So now also in our community center, we're still only allowed to use cold water. I'll just say one sentence about in many places in Israel, I don't know it many places outside Israel, you have a heating system from the sun, okay? And that is different. There is a discussion if heated water from the sun is allowed or not. So some people use water heated from the sun, and some do not. But since I don't know about many systems like that in the Nordic countries, I only say it. So now we have checked the possibility of using water to wash ourselves. We say we can't, in any case, use hot water on Shabbat to wash all of our body, even part after part. But we are allowed to use hot water that was heated before Shabbat, if we solve that, to wash parts of our body. Now there are some special situations where this is allowed. One situation is mikveh. If a woman has to go to the mikveh on Shabbat, of course, the mikveh has to be heated and filled from before Shabbat, but because it's a mitzvah and so on, it's allowed to go to the mikveh with all your body on Shabbat, if that is a day of the mikveh. So that's one case that is allowed, even if we said that the rule is not to do that. But we speak about, again, only if you have heated the water from before Shabbat. You're not allowed to cook for going to the mikveh on Shabbat. Because of that, you're not allowed to heat up the water of the mikveh on Shabbat. Arad, do you have a question or a comment?
What about using kli sheni, kli shlishi, this rule?
Yeah, if you, it helps to use kli sheni, but you can't heat up water in kli shlishi. You speak about like when we make tea, that we take it from the boiler and over to another cup, and then over to another cup, and then we put the tea in that. But that is to use the hot water when it's not in the first kli, and then use it. It doesn't help with the heating up of the water itself, because if you heat it up then it becomes what we call kli rishon, the first source of the heating. because this is after you have water that was heated, how could you use that other things in the water, the Kli Sheni and Shlishi? Yeah, so we say one thing where you're allowed to go into water is the mikveh. Another situation is if someone is very sick or not sick with danger for life, that's another thing, but or has a special situation where they suffer much more from not going to the bath. It's more common today than before because people are used to wash themselves, and if it's really suffering, some people really it could affect their body and their health in a way that is really suffering. Then they will be allowed to use hot water that was used before Shabbat to wash all of their body on Shabbat in these kind of cases. Also, there is a discussion if you're allowed to use cold water. Normally, we'll say that is allowed to wash your whole cold. I could tell from I was in the army in Israel, and when we stayed Shabbat in very hot places, the only way to cool down yourself was going to a very cold shower. And since we're not allowed to open the heat water, I wasn't allowed. Others who didn't keep Shabbat did that. Then I had to take really cold showers, and it was very good because it makes you cold to another hour and a half before you have to go back again. That was the only way to cool yourself down sometimes. That's allowed to do, and also especially if it's cold water, then most will say that we have the same problem. The problem was with the hot water, with the washing in hot water. When that is said, I said that there is this case of swimming pool, okay, a swimming pool on Shabbat, and to say if it's allowed or not allowed to go to a swimming pool on Shabbat, then we have even more things we have to take in concern. The Gemara says you're not allowed to swim in the lakes or in the rivers, because normally people were swimming in the lake to come from one side to the other, and they were afraid that people will build a kind of, not a boat, but something you could like land on to go to the other side. And because of that, it says you're not allowed to swim. And most people say that this is not relevant when it comes to a swimming pool, because a swimming pool has edges and you won't build a boat or what we call a raftoda on a swimming pool. Some say it's still not allowed to swim. The problem with swimming pool, in addition, could be that the fact that you're going with all your body, but swimming pools are normally not so hot, and then we don't have the hot water problem. But then there are several more problems with going to a swimming pool. One of them is the squeezing of the water. When you go to a place where your I see the question from Doreen, I'll answer. When your hair is wet, you will come to squeeze your hair, and that's not allowed. So that's one of the reasons why we don't do that. And actually, the main problem with going to a swimming pool is another halacha that is very irritating my children that want to go to the swimming pool on Shabbat, and that is that we don't do on Shabbat things of weekdays. It's called uvdin dechol. The things that we do on Shabbat should be different. We should more study, or with the family, go to synagogue, eat Shabbat meals, maybe rest. But activities that are weekdays activity shouldn't be on Shabbat. And most people, even if we have solved all the other problems with the swimming pool, say that it will change the whole atmosphere of Shabbat. If you use 3-4 hours around the swimming pool on the Shabbat, it won't be a Shabbat atmosphere. And because of that, I told my family that we don't do it on Shabbat. We could use it other days as an example. There was a question from Doreen about if you have a boiler and it's up to 200 degrees, if I understood the question correctly, and we take it out of the electricity or we turn it off, and then it's not reboiling things. if that is okay on Shabbat, and the answer is no. The reason the no is what I said, it's still taking in cold water when you take out hot water. And since if we take out hot water and new cold water is coming in, the new cold water will boil itself or be heated by the hot water, and that is not allowed on Shabbat. Because of that, it doesn't help to take it out of the electricity. So the using of hot water on Shabbat generally is very complicated. If you don't have a system, as I said, that makes it either from the sun, where some people say it's allowed, but some people say it's not allowed. If you don't have a system, as I said, in the community that we had, where the water is only heated to a low level, and then it's never heated for something that is described as cooking on Shabbat. Or, as I said, if you're lucky to live in a place where you get the heat water from the municipality, and then it's again allowed, not washing all the body, but it is allowed to wash parts of the body on Shabbat and using the hot water. And it's a big difference in cold days to try to wash yourself in cold water, but it is refreshing. And I have heard some I'm not expert in that at all, but some resources or something that say that it's not good to take too many hot water showers generally, but cold washing is always good for the body. It makes blood go better. So maybe there is a health thing in it, and you get awakened from cold water also. So maybe it has good things in it also. After we said that, it's still, if you wash your hair, if you go to the mikveh when it's allowed and so on, you still have to be careful from the squeezing. That is important to remember, and because of that, also it's good not to make the hair wet, if that is possible, because there is a possibility that you will come to squeeze. There was one issue we spoke about carrying, and there is a difference between if we go into the sea, and as we said, if I'm very, very hot, I'm allowed to go into the sea just to cool down, not to swim, cool down. But then when I go out of the water, there is a problem of the water that I carry on me. And that is not allowed, and that's then because of that, it's maybe not allowed to go to the water. I have to be careful with that, and it's sometimes impossible not to carry with you water when you do it. And then some will say, but you always, if we go out in working in the rain, the will get wet, and then we're carrying. But there is a difference between when you go into the sea, it means we want to get wet. And then we see it as if we carry the thing we wanted to take to ourselves. And if we go outside and it's rainy and we don't want to get wet, then we see it as something that was like forced on us. And it's also normally less. So it's allowed to go out in a rainy day, but it's not allowed to go into the sea and carry the wetness with you outside of the sea. There were some more questions here, if I can see.
You answered the question before.
Okay.
So it was about the rain.
Yeah, it's a good thought. So you think like the Talmud. That's very good. Yes, I want to go on because we have some more issues regarding cleanness and so on. I don't know where to start because there are many, but I'll start with something. One of them is what happens if we want to put perfume on us. Okay, and people will say perfume, what's the problem? Okay, but it is actually a problem because it says that we're not allowed to perfume our clothes on Shabbat. Okay, it's if we take our clothes and we want to make them smell well and take perfume on them, that's not allowed on Shabbat. The reason that it's not allowed on Shabbat is that we create the good smell of it. Okay. and we can discuss it, but it says that that's how it's defined. Okay, that is the basic of this. Now the question is, does that mean that we're not allowed to put perfume on our body? Use deodorant that makes good smell? And there are many different opinions and so on, but I'll try to get to what I believe is the main line. Most people say that it's allowed to put perfume on your body, that this rule is not only related to clothes, that you put it on the clothes, but not when you put it on our body. And even if we say that it's a problem to put it on our body, if we use it to react to not to have bad smell, that is okay. It's only to create a good smell, a new smell, that is not. So using deodorant is allowed, and using even other kind of perfumes. If you use the same perfume the day before and you still have some of the same smell, you don't create something new. So there are ways to do it for those who think that it's problematic. But I think, and many rabbis accept saying that it's the perfume rule is only perfume on clothes and not on our body. But when it comes to other things that people use, it's more complicated. For example, to in English now, smycke sig. Someone help me to
Use makeup?
Makeup, yeah, makeup. Or what is the problem with makeup? Someone could help me.
I suppose you create something. You create a look.
You create a look, yes, but it's actually also defined as one of the 39 rules that not allowed is to color. Okay.
Yeah, it's painting.
Painting, yeah, thank you. It's tzovea in Hebrew.
But there is a lot of makeup that's actually kosher for Shabbat.
Okay, help us.
I can't, because I don't know too much about it, but like you can use powder, and you can use powder rouge and eye stuff, but it's special stuff that you can buy it online. So yeah. For those of us who are in, it's a very good thing that it's possible.
Isn't it also because makeup contains oils, so that's why it's better that it's in powder?
Contains what?
Oil.
I can't hear what you said. I'm sorry.
Oil. Like
oil. Yeah, the oiling itself. The oiling itself is in a way allowed on Shabbat. So the oiling, but the problem is the painting in the makeup. Yeah, Elisa?
Yes, it's there is some powder you can use, but it has to be a colorless powder, white powder, so it doesn't like create any paint. So this is allowed, and you can do your makeup on Friday before Shabbat and leave it there. Yeah.
Wait, Rebecca?
I mean, at the same time as it goes for makeup, it's also about like ointments and creams. I read somewhere that it's okay to apply it as long as you dab it on and you don't like smear it in. Yeah, I just wanted to make an additional comment about that.
Yeah, cream is an issue for itself. We'll maybe come to it if we will succeed to go all the way to brushing our teeth. That is also a problem when we'll come there. But I like the way of doing it, that I present a problem and you come with the solutions. It's very good, and you're all correct, all right, that makeup is not allowed as a rule, but there are things that are allowed, as you said. So it's the painting itself that isn't allowed, and powder in most cases is not considered as painting because it's something you put on. But then it's a question if you allow to squeeze it. Squeezing with it could be a problem. So the best solution is, as Emunah said, buying things that are special for Shabbat. It also makes a separation between Shabbat and other days. You feel different, you use different things. We'll come back to it also in other issues. The same thing as I said about the swimming pool, that you don't do the same things that are used for weekdays, and by that it builds a difference. Of course, for people who used to be in a society where everyone has makeup and going without makeup, that could be hard. I don't used to have makeup myself, so I don't understand the problem so well myself. But I know that there are also men that are using things, and it's important to follow the rules there. Mainly the thing that we're not allowed to paint, but to put things on we allow. There's things we could do put on before. There's things that, if I understand correctly, last longer time, and then it's easier. But try to find the right solutions that are allowed for Shabbat and are suitable for every one of us. Okay, now we have had makeup and we have washed our hands in cold water. What about if we want to what do you call it? Børste håret, serket hair. What was how call it? Someone help me with the English here.
The hair.
Yeah, brush your hair.
Brush your hair.
Brush your hair. It's easy. I just Sunday mornings are days where works slowly, and also Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and so on. Brush your hairs. What is the problem with that? What could be the problem there?
You might remove your hair, and this is not allowed.
Yeah, you might remove your hair.
Pluck your hair out, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So it's called ligzos, the same as we cut hair from animals, or cutting things from ourselves, or even nails. We're not cutting things from our body on Shabbat. If someone has a nail that is half open, then it's very, very irritating. Then you're allowed to pull it out with your hand, not with the special item for it. But generally, we don't cut things, and we're not allowed to cut hair or take off hair from our body on Shabbat. And when we brush our hair, we could come to a situation where we are moving hair from ourselves. Now, people here and other people have said that, okay, where does this end? Where does it end with these rules? So the idea also here, and generally, is finding a balance. Like, okay, now we know that these things are problematic, so that I haven't known. But now we have to find the right way of doing it, taking care of our hair in a way that is allowed for Shabbat. So if someone is used to brush their hair and always lose hair, then it's a bigger problem. Okay, if you brush your hair and normally you don't, and just sometimes you lose hair, then just brush your hair carefully on Shabbat. And if hair falls, you tried not to, and then it's okay. If you always lose hair, then you have to be even more careful. A very good recommendation is having a special item to brush your hair on Shabbat that is a little more loose, a little more open, not as tied, and then trying to use it a little more carefully. Then you have had special mivreshet, I don't know, call it hair
brush.
Thank you. Still Sunday problems. Hair brush to a special for Shabbat that isn't a tie, that normally takes less hair, and being careful, then it's allowed. Just being careful and try to use that. It also helps that you use, if then you have an item, a hairbrush that always takes off hair, it makes it special that you have a special one for Shabbat. That could help. Yes, Rebecca.
You might have already answered, but I just wondered, so because I have really long hair, so if I hold my hair collectively and then just brush the part beneath where I'm holding my hair, then technically nothing would fall out. I mean, that would be considered allowed.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, as long as it normally doesn't, even if sometimes it does, But if you do it in a way that it normally doesn't lose hair, then it's okay. If you do it in the way that you always lose hair, then we have a problem. So and trying not to take off the hair yourself. Yes, Micha.
Yeah, you say something about the balance, and I think also we have to be careful not to destroy the Oneg Shabbat, because if you feel not clean and look bad and everything, you won't get out to the synagogue and you don't feel good, and then it's not a Oneg Shabbat.
And what you said is very important, and because of that, we could have said all of these things about being clean or other things. No, we don't. We want to be 100% sure and safe, and because of that, we don't touch water on Shabbat. We don't. No, of course, we have to be clean on Shabbat. It's a part of the being. But knowing that you have to prepare the Shabbat, and the things that you could have makeup before Shabbat, you do before Shabbat. You light a candle before Shabbat. You make the food before Shabbat, and you prepare yourself and your home for Shabbat. This is a part of the Oneg Shabbat. And then, if you come to situations that are more complicated, then normally there are solutions. But we don't just break the rules because, okay, but we want to be nice on Shabbat. That we don't do. So the question is how to do it. So as we said, with brushing the hair, we understand that there is a problem, but we also understand that people need to brush their hair. Because of that, the best thing is to use hairbrush that is a little more loose on Shabbat, that doesn't take off hair in the same way. And you could brush the hair as much as you want before Shabbat, and it helps a little, if I understand correctly. I don't have a lot of experience. And then we use this special one on Shabbat if we normally lose hair, and we try to do it more careful. And then we have done our side of trying not to lose hair and trying to do it in the correct way. And it gives also, as I said, according to my opinion, a good feeling that Shabbat is different from other days. It's important to say most of these things we speak about are the same on Shabbat and on Yom Tov, but the thing about hot water is much easier on Yom Tov. And because of that, there are a lot of things of the hot water that are allowed to do in Yom Tov. It's not the issue now, but just say it. When coming to brushing the hair, it's the same in Yom Tov and on Shabbat. There was a question. Yeah, there was a question about hair elastic. If I understand correctly, it's something that holds the hair together. Just say if that's correct, because I'm not expert in the words of it. Yeah, that's allowed on Shabbat. It's allowed on Shabbat to collect the hair with something that holds it, as even if sometimes hair could be stuck on it. What's not allowed on Shabbat is to put the hair together as a, I don't know how you call it,
braid.
To
Braids.
Braids. Hair, that's more like, it has several problems. One of them is the kosher, to bind things in a way that's not allowed, but only the binds or something that holds the hair together, that is allowed on Shabbat for the Christian. So here again, the balance here. Someone will say, okay, these are new things I didn't know, no balance here. Jews are crazy. And if you say that, you're right. We're crazy, but we try to be crazy in a balanced way. Yes, any more question about hair? I'll go over to teeth. Okay, what is problematic with brushing our teeth on Shabbat? That's something we do every day, several times. Is there a problem with that? Yes.
You might get your gums bleeding.
Bleeding, yes. Eva?
Oh, sorry, I went straight to the point when you are putting the toothpaste in the water straight to the mouth, because you should not put it on the toothbrush.
So the toothpaste is a problem. What is the problem with the toothpaste?
Well, I could also think that it could be the squeezing, but I somehow know that you can put the toothpaste directly to your mouth, but not on the tooth.
Not on okay. Okay, but you see, there is a problem with, it's called memareach and it's mimrach. It's something that is harder and we squeeze it. And the question is if it is considered as liquid. Liquid we're allowed to use. We're not allowed to use harder things where we squeeze them. That is memareach and not allowed. And the question is how you say if you put it in the mouth, it goes off in another way. And if you put it on the toothbrush, then you good. Okay. Any more problems with the teeth, brushing our teeth? Okay. There is one more problem that could be if the toothbrush is made from of course electric is the problem. I wouldn't say that, but if not, if it's made from kind of hair that collects the water, and then we could be squeezing. So it's good to use something that is more synthetic on Shabbat. And again, some say you have to have a own toothbrush for Shabbat to separate the Shabbat from weekdays. I heard several people say that, not everyone say that, but the problem of squeezing. The problem with blood is you're not allowed to take out blood. Normally, most of these problems are solved by being more careful. If it's not always taking out blood, then you're allowed to use it. And I don't know if anyone always gets blood every time they brush the teeth. If you do that, then buy a toothbrush that is a little more soft. Be more careful when you brush your teeth. That's one thing. Yes, Sarah?
And how about this mouthwash, for example, like Listerine and things like
Washing, like the liquid that you wash your mouth with.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not a problem at all. And that's also the solution. Many use, instead of using on Shabbat, the normal Colgate or paste or other kind of that is more hard, use or liquid to wash your mouth with, and then you use that in a way as a kind of cleaner. Or there are also kind of toothpaste that are more liquid, and then there are of course allowed on Shabbat. I know about 3-4 that are normal to buy in several places. It is also possible to get them in India, and then we yes. I don't know if it's someone who wants to speak, but I'll continue. Moshe David, did you want to say something? Okay.
I think he's discussing with someone and he left it open.
Yeah.
If I understood.
Okay, good. So that was the teeth. The last, but not least, there are several more things we could speak about. But the last but not least issue we speak about is toilet paper. Okay, toilet paper is known because there is the issue of cutting the toilet paper before Shabbat. What do we do with that? What is the problem with toilet paper on Shabbat?
You can't tear anything.
Can tear, yes. Micha?
Yeah, you can prepare it. People cut it before.
You're allowed to cut it before, but if you do it on Shabbat, it should be a problem.
Yeah,
so,
of course.
So I'll say the following. It's important. We need toilet paper, and as people say, if we don't have that available on Shabbat, it could really ruin the Shabbat, and we don't want to be in situations where we lose our self-feeling and good feeling and so on. Rebecca?
I just want to give a general advice to people. You can buy tissue paper in the shops, yes. Which solves the issue.
The best situation is to have the ones who are cut in advance. It's very easy. But I want to speak about what the problem is before we find the solution. I like, as I said, when I come with a problem and you come with the solutions, it shows that you are very integrated in the topics. I know that, but toilet paper it's actually not the tearing, the korea. It's more what we call mechatech, that is to cut it in a special way, to cut a line in and because of that, it's worse to cut the toilet paper on the lines than outside the lines. Korea is normally to tear is connected to sewing together. And since that is not relevant here, most don't see it as a problem of Korea, but a problem of mechatech, to cut it clear. Because of that, the best thing is, as we all know, to have cut toilet paper or tissues from advance. As I said before, I spoke about the Jewish community, the water we solve, but it does not solve anymore. But we always have a toilet paper and napkins are the things that are cut from advance. They come cut from the store, and then we always have them, and there's no problem. That's the rule. Now the question is, and we should also speak about, what do we do if we don't have it? If we forgot, or if we're in a place where it's not available, and we only have toilet paper that we need to cut in a way, what do we do? Lars, question or comment?
Or comment on that, or maybe both. I think that I heard somewhere that since there is not forbidden to destroy things, actually, you can kind of do something with the toilet paper, which more is to destroy it, and then you find out that this destruction of the toilet paper actually ends up in a few pieces, then you can use them.
Yeah, in a way you're correct. What you say is right, but also wrong. But you're right by saying that destroying is allowed, and cutting to destroy is not a problem. That's why when we need food, we allow to open bags to get what's inside, to have food, as an example, because we're destroying the bag in a way. It's not for preparing it. In the second hand, if we destroy it because we want to use it, the question is, are we actually destroying, or are we trying to get pieces that we want to use? So but your comment is correct. I'll come back to it after comments from Monica or Kato, and after that, Rebecca.
Yeah, I know it's if you have not cut it in advance and have forgotten it and need it, you are at least allowed to cut it in normal way. So you cut it between the normal parts of the toilet paper.
Thank you. Rebecca?
I heard it's the other way around. So as long as you don't tear it by where it's supposed to be teared, but you do it kind of like in a wonky way, then it's okay. Yeah. Yes. You say correct things. I'll just add to it after all the comments. Kato or Monica?
Yeah, no, I'm not going in the right direction, but I really have a problem with this rule about toilet paper, because in a way it's I don't think I like to think about God and go into the toilet and whatever I do there together. I think it's degrading. We're going in a way too deep into something that it's necessary for us to do, and try to make some strange rule about it. How did we come to this?
Good question. As I said, we like to be weird. Good question. I'll answer all your questions. I'll begin with the first comments, and I'll maybe end with your comments, Monica. First of all, when it comes to cutting, as we said, the main problem is not that we tear it. Is the main problem is that we are cutting it in a special way, and there the lines are the special way we should cut it, and that's the main problem. And because of that, if we don't have paper that is cut in advance, we are, according to some of the opinions, allowed to cut it, but not on the lines, or try not to be on the lines. And then we're not trying to cut it right. Some people, as also said, say that you should do it in another way, not in the normal way. And as we said, when you do things, we learned it in several lessons until now. When we do it in not normal way, then it's for sure not from the Torah and so on. Some say you're not allowed to tear it in that way. In another way, there are also discussions if you make something new, but the question is if you could actually use it without tearing it actually. And because of that, you don't make something new. I won't go all the opinions about it. The bottom line is the best thing is to have it before Shabbat prepared. If you're in a situation where you can't, try to cut it in the normal way, at least not on the lines. And then it's allowed to not come to a situation where you don't have toilet paper when you need it. And now
Rav Joav, I have a general comment. When you finished?
Yeah, so I'll just answer the very nice comment from Monica, and then I will let you give the word. It's true to think, okay, when we want to serve our God, we go to the synagogue, to the high, we go to the holy place, and that's the place where we serve our God. In the Jewish way of seeing it, of course, the synagogue is holy for prayer when we gather ourselves. But the way we want to keep it is in the private and in the family and in society. And because of that, the way that Judaism is the Torah, the mitzvot are built up, it's also in the most intimate place, also in the places where we say are the opposite than holy. We still have rules. We have rules of our sex life. We have rules for our anything. As I said, and we say here, the way we wash ourselves, use water, not use water. The question about toilet paper wasn't before because they didn't have toilet paper in all days. The question was about tearing things and making new things. And now in the situation of modern times, that comes into the toilet. And still, at least the way of the Orthodox frame is to say, even there are rules. Of course, try to do it in a way, it's not something we discuss. You don't go out of the toilet and say, oh, I cut it in this way, this way. It is still private. But also in the private, we have the Shabbat. And the idea is that we should have it in the holy, the most holy, and what we feel is less holy. Everything is holy in the end, and everything has its frame. It doesn't mean that the toilet is a place for prayer and so on. That's not allowed because we understand the status of a toilet, and it shouldn't be a place for saying blessings and so on. But keeping the rules are still relevant in the toilet. But I understand your comment and understand why it feels wrong and too much sometimes. The last sentence before I give the word back to Rav Moshe David or to Moshe David, what did we try to do today? We went through many different things and we weren't able to go to the most depths of all of them. From using water, washing, perfume, makeup, brushing our hair, brushing our teeth, and even using toilet paper, and there are more things we could have spoken about. Understanding that even these things that are taking care of our body, there are ways of doing it. And as I said, I hope we find a balance. It's nice that it's different. Even that is different from Shabbat. It makes the Shabbat so different because we do it in the ways of Shabbat when it's Shabbat. And as we said, halakha, trying to find a balance, not saying, okay, since it's on the gray zone, we don't do. No, the opposite. We try to find the way we do it without for sure taking off hair, without for sure having out blood in our teeth, without for sure building something new or cooking water when we wash our hands. But in that, we find ways to be clean, to be prepared for Shabbat, and to use most of our energy on Shabbat for the content of the day. That's like the balance I find in the halacha here. I hope we were able to go through most of the topics, maybe either understanding them, finding ideas, or at least to know that there is something we have to check. Rav Moshe David.
Yeah, A general comment I would like to take just listening to the shiur, because for some maybe it's things they are used to, and for others it could be a bit crazy, as you said a few times during the shiur. I remember a few years ago, I was quite a few years ago, I was teaching a conversion class in the Israeli army, and they went out for their first Shabbat. They were so proud and prepared. And then after Shabbat, I heard that there had been an incident that one of the soldiers got stuck in the toilet for the entire Shabbat. So when I realized what had happened, I spoke to this soldier, and this soldier wasn't sure whether he was allowed to drain the toilet, and therefore was so confused and upset that he just stayed there for the whole Shabbat. So I bring that story as a reflection to this shiur, because I think that one thing, and one more thing I'm going to say, which is a bit contradicting to what you said, Rav Yoav, about the toilet paper. One of the most important things that we should remember in terms of the melachot of Shabbat is that having intention is connecting us closer to the melacha. If we don't have intention, we didn't actually intend to do the melacha, then that in itself is taking us one step further away from the prohibition of the melacha. So, for example, with the toilet paper, I didn't have in my mind that I'm tearing anything. What I had in my mind was that I'm using toilet paper for the use that I needed it at the time. Now what I just did is think about tearing, and now I'm preparing to tear, and now I'm tearing in a place that I've never torn before. I think that process in itself, many times it's much easier to just do what I'm used to and not even think of it than to have the whole process of thinking of it. For example, brushing teeth. That's why many will allow brushing of teeth, because you never thought of all the things that you brought forward. And suddenly we're bringing in, maybe it's this, maybe it's that. On the other hand, to go back to what you were saying before, if I have boiling water and I'm boiling them, I'm cooking them. But I think there's a difference between the different melachot that you have brought forward of where the intention is and how close I am to the intention. Also, I'd like to hear your comment, but one other thing that I want to add is that none of the things that we have talked about are even close to deoraita. I don't think any of them, they're at least a few stages away. In other words, from the actual melacha as it was in the Mishkan. So therefore, if you're extremely stressed out where you are, then just remember that in terms of where we're putting this, not to say that anything is okay, it's not permitted to violate, but when you have something which is a necessity on Shabbat, and it's melacha de Rabbanan, and it's not being done in the way that it was intended, then it could be permissible. So of course I'm just saying, what I'm trying to do is to calm down a bit. If anyone is stressed out and you end up in the toilet and then you're like, what do I do now? Or you end up with the refrigerator open, what do I do now? Then, I mean, you have to think in these terms. And of course, it's good to have someone knowledgeable to ask when you get into situations you don't always do, and then you can learn afterwards. Do your best and then talk to your rabbi afterwards. But I'd like to hear of you, of what your comment is.
Yeah, thank you for the comment. I agree in general lines. The idea is to know where there are problems and to try to suit all of the things we do for Shabbat. But that's why I try to say balance. That's the way I say it, between knowing that things are not allowed and try to brush your teeth or your hair in a Shabbat way, and prepare yourself for Shabbat. Because if you do all these things as a normal day, if you make up as a normal day, if you wash yourself as a normal day, you will for sure do many things that are not allowed. But in that gray zone, exactly as you say, there are many opinions, and you could always find someone who says that also that is not allowed, but you could also very often find people who allow things. I tried, in my understanding, to find a balance in the midway. What I understood was a midway, but I'm happy that you stress us a little down, saying, don't stress about it. I just went through, you do so and so and so, and I agree, don't stress about it. Okay, don't feel, oh, I teared the toilet paper on the line, that was terrible. You don't want that. It happened. Okay, but doesn't mean that you shouldn't try to prepare your home, your things, your washing yourself to Shabbat, and knowing that even these things, there are details for Shabbat, and the Shabbat is not only not cooking and not driving, the things that people see outside.
I think one of the biggest challenges is that, or one of the advantages, on the other hand, is the more you're around homes that are actually keeping Shabbat, then the more it's true about all of the shiurim that we've gone through now. Then you see in practice, how is someone putting food on the plata? How are they taking it away from the plata? And then maybe you don't see them in the toilet, but you see if there's cut paper or not. And maybe you might even show up at a family completely religious and they don't have cut toilet paper. And then that could lead to a discussion, which is very fruitful. And it's a way to learn, to be there, to observe, to challenge, to ask. I think it's important, and don't be shy to do so, because that's an important way of learning, because there's so many different opinions. But of course, no one is saying it's permissible to do something which is violating the Shabbat. The question is how I see it, how I approach it, and where the boundaries are set. And this can be different from community to community. So
yeah,
thank
so
you.
Don't stress.
Yeah.
Don't stress is good in a general way. Don't stress. That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for your comments. I hope you balance me a little.
Okay. So someone here asked for the link for the shiurim. Let me see if I can. 1 second. I think you have it now in the chat where all of the recorded shiurim are uploaded. So if anyone was missing it, you should. This is a private link, because if people comment here, we wanted them to feel that they're in a private classroom with us. So please keep the link private, just for those who are in the shiur. But you have it here. I've shared it with you. Thank you, Rav Yoav, for this week. And we'll see you, Bezrat Hashem, both on Wednesday and next week as well. We're hoping, Bezrat Hashem, may we have a week of better news than the terrible news that we all, after Shabbat, opened the radio. And I'll actually share just maybe, I know we're way beyond time, but maybe it's important. I'll share something that happened on Shabbat to me personally. On Shabbat, our teenage daughter came home. In the morning, I saw she was visibly upset, and she had spoken to some soldiers who came to, they had a lot of extra security because of the situation in Israel. I was in Israel this Shabbat with my family, and so she heard the news about this terrible massacre on Shabbat evening already when it happened. And both the message to her and I didn't share that news with anyone, with not one person throughout the Shabbat. And it was very difficult for me, of course, to keep my mind focused on Shabbat and not allow any of those feelings. And the minute we made Havdalah, I broke down. But it's an important message for Shabbat, that first of all, we don't have news, we don't have radio, we don't have television, because Shabbat is Yom Shekulo Tov. And unfortunately, there are people who violate the Shabbat in the worst way possible, through terror attacks at a synagogue. But it's also, I wanted to share this with you as how important it is to try to control and focus on the Shabbat where it's supposed to be, even though it's very difficult to do so. And of course, to have that news on Shabbat is terrible. I'm actually a bit upset, not a bit, I'm upset with the soldiers. They shouldn't be sharing news anyway like this it's not their job to share the news with teenage kids, but definitely not on Shabbat. But I wanted to share with you in that way. But of course, it's also a time for praying, to feeling apart, of the Jewish people in prayer, to ask Hashem to keep us all safe and secure wherever we are in Israel, and as if there are tensions, that Jewish communities around the world, Bezrat Hashem, not be affected in violent ways either. So it's a time for togetherness, for prayer, and we hope for Bisurot Tovot, and we send our message, our hugs and comfort to those families who lost their loved ones just next to the synagogue. Some were on their way to a shiur, some were on their way to the shul, some were on their way from a Shabbat meal. So I think it's important we share this message also in the shiur. So Shavua Tov, we hope for the best and we pray for the best and we pray for shalom. So Shavua Tov to everyone.
Shabbat Tov, thank you all.
Shabbat tov.
Shabbat
Shavua
שבוע
tov.
טוב, תודה רבה.